श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरु साक्षात् महेश्वर गुरुदेव जगत्सर्वं तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विश्वगुरोगणां निधे सर्वविद्यानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्ये सर्वदा गजाननं भूतगणासेवितं गविद्वजं बहुपरसारभक्षितम् उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारणं नमः विघ्नेश्वरपादपङ्कजं शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्ते व्यासम् अष्टनप्तारं शक्ते पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात्मनि वन्दे सुखदातं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मणे वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं चैव ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Last time we saw how Pandavas started their journey towards Panchala, and there they came across this Gandharva, and Arjuna fought with him that Angaraparna, so that Gandharva, Arjuna fought with him, and Arjuna gave the Agnivesha weapon to him, and in return he got special signs which allows him to create illusions, and also each of the Pandavas got 100 horses from Gandharva Loka. Then Gandharva suggests them that they should have a priest for their success. Every king should have a priest. And then at that time, Arjuna asks, why did you call me Tapatya? And then they explain the story of Tapati marrying Samvarna, King Samvarna, and then they learn about that. And then they say that like Vasishta, you need to have a priest, and then they ask about Vasishta. So Vasishta and Vishwamitra's argument, the battle, we learned about that. So we looked at how Vishwamitra tried to capture Nandini, and then Nandini fought back and defeated all the soldiers from Vishwamitra's side. And then Vishwamitra, realizing that Brahmana is superior, he tries to become a Brahmana. He goes and gives up his kingdom and starts penance and finally becomes a Brahmana. So now we continue that story. There was a king called Mitrasaha. He was also later on called Kalmashapada. I will explain why he was. So he was from, again, Ikshvaku dynasty, and he had superior strength, and he was disciple of Vasishta, but Vishwamitra wanted him to make his disciple. So there was always that battle. And once, while the king was returning from a hunting trip, he was very tired, and king comes across Vasishta's eldest son, Shakti. Okay, Shakti is the eldest son. Vasishta had 100 sons, out of them Shakti was the eldest, and king comes across Shakti. And king was very tired. He says, move away. I need to go back, move away. And what Shakti says, I am Brahmana, you are supposed to give way to me. If you remember, when we were discussing about conduct and other things, I said there is priority. If a Brahmana comes across, you should give way to Brahmana. Then if it is a pregnant lady or somebody carrying a heavy stuff, they all come next. And then the king, then the old people, like that. There is priority order, right? So Shakti says that, king, you are very proud of your strength and things. So that's why you're not giving way. And they both argue, verbally they both argue, and then saying that who should give way. And king did not give way. What he does is, in anger, he gets angry. He takes out a whip and lashes at Shakti. And Shakti becomes very angry at that. He curses the king that he acted like a Rakshasa. Let him be like a Rakshasa. Let him have the body of the character like a Rakshasa. And he curses that, and Shakti goes away. And then king comes to comes back to his kingdom. After some time, Vishwamitra comes across. Vishwamitra, once the king was out, Vishwamitra tries to make use of this situation. What he does is he asks a Rakshasa named Kinkara to enter the body of the king and influence his senses. Okay, so whatever the king is thinking, speaking, all those things, doing all those things will be influenced by that Rakshasa spirit called Kinkara. Vishwamitra allows that, and king, like Shakti's curse, starts behaving like that. While one day king was wandering like that with the Rakshasa spirit in him, he was going around. Sometimes he was behaving like Rakshasa, sometimes he was normal. So while he was going like that, he comes across a Brahmana, and that Brahmana was hungry. He says, I need some food, and king promises him that I will bring you some food. And then he goes away and then forgets about it. At night, he remembers that the king, he promised a Brahmana that he will give the food. So he remembers, he gets up and he asks his cook to prepare the food. He tells the cook that go and get a nice good meat and feed that Brahmana. The cook goes and says, it is midnight, we don't have any meat here. Okay, he comes back after some time and says, we don't have any meat. King, influenced by the Rakshasa spirit, he says that go and feed human flesh. If you don't have anything, go and feed human flesh. Why are you asking me? I told you already, go and do your job. So the cook goes to prison. They kill some prisoner who was due to be hanged to death. They kill him, they bring his flesh and serve the Brahmana. And king realizes, the Brahmana realizes, looking at that flesh, he says that you are serving a human flesh to me. You are acting, your conduct is not good. So you also become somebody who eats human flesh. He curses, that Brahmana curses king here. There is also another story here. What happens is this actually was happened to Vasishta, that Brahman. In some stories, some Puranas, it is said that Vasishta was served with the human flesh, and Vasishta says, you served me like this, and king didn't know about this human flesh, okay, that was served. And king, at that time, king takes some water, and when Vasishta curses him to start eating human flesh, king takes some water and he wanted to curse in return his guru, Vasishta. He takes that water and then realizes that he should not curse, and then he throws that water down. So that water falls on his feet. That's why he was called Kalmashapada. Kalmasha is like impure or something that's got unwanted stuff mixed. Okay, so Kalmashapada, that's why he got the name as Kalmashapada. So his name became Kalmashapada because he poured that water which he was thinking about as cursing his guru, poured on his feet, and his feet become impure. So this Brahmana here, as per Mahabharata, this Brahmana curses king Kalmashapada, and Kalmashapada then starts eating human flesh only. So that king now completely lost his sense. He's a Rakshasa character and he's been cursed again to eat human flesh. He thinks about whom to eat. He thinks about Shakti, because it's all started because of that Shakti's curse. I'm going to eat him. He goes to Vasishta's ashrama, eats Shakti first. Then at that time, Vishwamitra comes there and tells Kalmashapada, okay, you just had Shakti, but don't eat the other 99 children. Okay, he just reminds that Rakshasa that there are 99 more people who he can eat. Okay, so Vishwamitra said, don't eat them. And then Kalmashapada goes and eats the other 99 as well. So Vasishta loses all his children because of this Rakshasa. So once he loses all these children, Vasishta thinks about ending his life. He goes to top of a mountain, okay, and then he jumps from there, thinking he want to die. What he does is, when he jumps, he doesn't get killed. Instead, he lands on a cotton wool and he gets survived. And then he goes next to a river, flooded river. He goes there ties all the heavy stuff onto him, and then he jumps. But then everything, all that heavy stuff becomes like very floating stuff, and it brings him back up on top. He doesn't get killed. Then he goes again, ties himself, okay, and then jumps into the sea. And the sea, the waves brought him to the shore. So nothing happens. So he tries all the means. Then he tries, okay, whatever I'm doing, I'm not dying. So he decides to come home. So he tries to return to his asylum. While he was returning, he remembers his sons, and with that sorrow, he tries to go back again. He did not want to come back, because whenever he tries to come near house, that village, wherever he used to live, he remembers his children, how they used to play and everything else. He used to come there, and then he goes to another swollen river, ties himself up through rope, and then jumps into that. Okay. The river, what the river does is, the river unties him. That river unties him and then brings him to the shore. And that's why that river becomes called as Vipasa. That means the remover of the ties. That river becomes known as Vipasha. And then he comes again to another river called Hemavati. Okay. Hemavati, that means that's flown from Himalaya, Himavat. So that's why it's called Hemavati. It's full of crocodile and all the other monsters in that. And Vasishta goes and jumps into that river. But that river splits into 100 directions. And wherever he goes, that river is not there. Okay. So that's why it's became known as, that river became known as Shatadru. Shatadru means it becomes, Shata means 100. So it went in 100 directions. So again, Vasishta thinks, whatever I do, I cannot kill myself. And then Vasishta thinks, okay, I'm going back again to my home. Whatever happens will happen. He starts counting his steps backwards to his home. On his way, as he was counting, he hears a noise, somebody following him. He looks back, and he also hears somebody chanting Vedas and all the mantras and everything else. He looks back, his daughter-in-law named Adrishyanti was following him. And he asks, who is chanting this Vedas? And that Adrishyanti says that she is pregnant for about 12 years now, and it is her son's voice who's learned all the Vedas and everything from his father Shakti. Okay. And that son is actually chanting all these things. And Vasishta becomes very happy. He realizes that he finally got somebody in his generation. Even though all his sons are died, he has a grandson. So Vasishta returns happily and looks after Adrishyanti. And after some time, Kalmashapada, because he was cursed to so at that time, so Kalmashapada comes there. Kalmashapada comes and he tries to eat them. Vasishta does a Humkara is like So when it does that, that Rakshasa runs away from the king. So the king becomes released of the Rakshasa. So that was because Shakti's curse was limited to 12 years. So that 12 years is finished, and king returns to Ayodhya as a good king, and he starts ruling. And later on, with Vasishta's help, king gets a son called Ashmaka. Okay, so it should be called, not killed. So king gets a son called Ashmaka. Okay, and he founded the city called Paundanya. So here Vasishta has a grandson now. Okay, so after some time, Adrishyanti delivers a son, and Vasishta performed him all the rites. So naming ceremony, everything he performed him, and he called him Parashara. Do you remember Parashara's name? Parashara is Vyasa's father. Okay, so that Parashara, he knew all the Vedas, everything from his birth, but he didn't know that he always thought Vasishta was his father. He used to go around him calling daddy, daddy, daddy to Vasishta. And one day, when Adrishanti calls him and tells him that he is not your father, he is your grandfather. Okay, your father was killed by a Rakshasa. Okay, and Parashara becomes very sad. In that grief, he says, I am going to do something. Okay, I'm going to destroy all this whole creation, entire world. I'm going to destroy because somebody for no reason killed my father. So I'm going to kill and destroy this entire creation. At that time, Vasishta explains him why one should not get angry. Okay, Vasishta explains a reason of a story of Arva. Arva is from Bhrigu's generation. So there was a king called Kartavirya, and he was a disciple of Bhrigu, and he gave large amount of wealth to all the Brahmanas and everybody. And after his death, what happened was his generation, they wanted wealth. So they went asking everybody, give us the wealth. And they knew that Bhrigus were rich because Bhrigu Brahmanas, the Brahmanas who came from Bhrigu race, they had all the wealth gifted by the king. So they went to Brahmanas asking for those wealth. And the Brahmanas, some of them gave it away to those Kshatriyas. Some gave a part of it, and then the rest of thing they were hiding. And some Brahmanas did not even give because of greed. They did not give anything. What they did was they were hiding it all in all the places in the home. Okay, burying it and all these things. So Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, once they realized that these Brahmanas are hiding everything, so they became angry. From that, they started killing all the Brahmanas from Bhrigu's race, one after another. Kshatriyas started killing one after another. Everybody, whoever is Bhrigu's race, they started killing them in mass. They started killing even children who were there. They started destroying all the pregnant women and everyone so that no children is born. So like this, things were happening. One woman who was pregnant took her embryo and stored it on her thighs instead of in stomach, stored it on her thighs, carried that like that for 100 years. And that soul embryo was carrying all the knowledge that Bhrigus had. Okay, knew everything, and that was carrying everything. And she was carrying like that for 100 years. And somebody came to know about this, and they told Kshatriyas that there is one lady still who is carrying a Bhrigu race. Okay, a Brahmana and Bhrigu race. And the Kshatriyas comes there and they try to hurt her. At that time, a huge light comes up. Okay, from that, all the Kshatriyas, they lost their sight. And the Kshatriyas asked for forgiveness, and then their eyesight was restored. Then a son was born to that lady, and he was named Arva. Okay, so that Arva wanted to destroy the Kshatriya race because his race was almost exterminated by the Kshatriyas. He wanted to destroy. He started severe penance. He did so many years of penance. All the Devas, Asuras, everybody was worried by what he was trying to do. Then nobody could convince him. Indra and everybody came and said, stop this. He did not listen to anybody. He continued doing penance to gain this strength and powers so that he can destroy all the Kshatriya race. Then the Pitrus came, the Bhrigus who were killed, they came there. They said, we wanted to end our life. That's why we made this plan. We were hiding the wealth so that the Kshatriyas can attack us and kill us. We were so good. Yama was also not taking our life, but we had to leave this earth and attain the next place. That's why we had to come up with an option, and that's why we started hiding wealth and angering the Kshatriyas, and that's where this all started. So don't do anything to Kshatriyas. So don't do anything. Kshatriyas were just, we used them to kill us. It was not because of themselves they killed us. Okay, And Pitrus like that, they ask Arva not to do anything. But Arva still argues that whatever it was, even if you ask, they killed Brahmanas, they destroyed our race almost, we should not do this. And I'm still angry. And at that time, Pitrus says that if you're really angry, that fire within you, throw that in the ocean, okay? Throw that in the water and don't keep it within yourself. And Arva like that, he throws away that fire within him, which wanted to kill all the Kshatriyas into the water, and a horse came up, and that became known as Vadavamukha. So Vasishta explains here, Parashara, that one should not get angry because anger destroys the word. So one should not get angry, control your anger. Even Vasishta, when Vishwamitra did all that to kill all his children, he did not attack Vishwamitra. Even though he had superior powers, he did not attack anybody. He did not attack Vishwamitra when he was a king. He did not attack or Kalmashapada or anybody who did all those things. So he controlled his anger. Vasishta says, Parashara, don't do this. But Parashara agrees that he will not destroy the world, but he says that I will make a sacrifice to kill and all the Rakshasas. And he sits between the three fires and he himself becomes transformed into a fire, and he invokes all the Rakshasas one after another, and all the Rakshasas starts coming and falling into the fire. Like we heard about snake sacrifice, Janamaya, snake sacrifice earlier. So here it's a Rakshasa sacrifice performed by Parashara. So seeing this, all the rishis came, all the Maharshis came, Atri, Pulastya, Pulala, Kratu, everybody came there. All of them said to Parashara that this is not the duty of a Brahmana to kill anybody or hurt anybody. Your duty is asceticism, okay? Peace, that is your duty. So don't do this, all these things. And they explained to Parashara that Shakti was killed because of his anger and because of his curse. He is the only one who cursed king that to become a Rakshasa, and that Rakshasa came and ate him. So it is not Kalmashapada or anybody that's their problem. It is Shakti's anger that was the problem. So don't get angry. And those rishis say that they explained that Shakti himself, Kalmashapada, all of them are in heaven now. So don't worry about this. And hearing this, Parashara decides to finish his sacrifice. And what he does is he throws that fire into north of the Himalayas. So there, and the Gandharva, who is explaining all this story to Arjuna, says that that fire, even today we can see it, and that fire even today, it is taking the Rakshasas, trees, stones, everything in all the seasons. Okay, so that's what the Gandharva explains. Then once he explains that, Arjuna asks, you said Kalmashapada, King Kalmashapada had a son through Vasishta. Why did that happen? Okay, and Gandharva explains this story. So when Kalmashapada was influenced by that Rakshasa, he was hungry. He was looking for food. Once he comes across a Brahmana and his wife in the forest sitting together, and they tried to run away, but this Kalmashapada, influenced by that Rakshasa, chases them and catches the Brahmana. At that time, his wife begs for the life. She says that, I want my husband, please don't kill him. Okay, and please don't separate us. But the king did not listen. He eats that Brahmana. He eats that Brahmana in front of his wife, and that wife at that time curses him that because you separated us, if you ever go to your wife and be together with your wife, at that time immediately you will meet your death. It is the curse similar to what Pandu had. Okay, so Pandu, for example, had this after killing Rishi Kendama, he had this similar curse. Okay, so separating them, that wife curses, so you will be you will die immediately, you will meet. She also says that your only way when she also says the only way is because you killed all Vasishta's sons, your generation can only continue through Vasishta's grace. If Vasishta agrees and blesses you, that's the only way you can have children. And after 12 years, when the king was released from that Rakshasa by Vasishta, king requests Vasishta to give him, bless him a child. And Vasishta agrees to help. And through Madayanti, king has a son, gets a son. Any questions up to now? Okay. Next, Arjuna, at that time, finally, Arjuna asks, if you remember, all this discussion story started, Tapati, Vasishta, Kalmashapada, Vishwamitra, and Kalmashapada getting children, all these sub-stories, small stories, okay, was narrated by Gandharva because he started telling Arjuna that they should have a priest. Arjuna kept asking about all the other things, but not about priest. First he asked, why did you call Tapatya? And then he said, explain me about Vasishta. And then he said, why Vasishta and Vishwamitra became enemies. Vishwamitra started troubling Vasishta. And then he asked, what happened to Vasishta's children? And then he asked, why did Vasishta blessed king had the Kalmashapada had children through Vasishta? So Arjuna asks all these questions one after another. And then finally, Arjuna says, you said all along that we should have a priest like Vasishta to guide us through. You know everything, everybody. You are the best person. Can you suggest somebody, a priest, who can help us? And at that time, Gandharva says, there is a Rishi here nearby. He is the brother of Rishi Devala. Go and meet him, and he is the right one for you. And Arjuna then worships that Gandharva and gives him the fire weapon, okay, and which they agreed, and tells the Gandharva that the horses you promised us to give, keep them for now, because I will ask you whenever the time is right. I don't need them now, but I will ask you when the time is right. And Arjuna salutes him and then leaves that place. They find their way and then they go to Utkochaka. Okay, so there they see the Shiva's shrine. Okay, there Dhaumya was doing his penance. They meet Dhaumya and worship him, and then they request Dhaumya that to become their priest. And Dhaumya agrees to that. Dhaumya's story, I started very beginning of Mahabharata in the very first or second lesson I told about Dhaumya's story and his 3 disciples, if you remember. Okay, it's the same Dhaumya. So Dhaumya was very much acquainted with all the Vedas, meanings and everything. And he wasn't going to be swayed by anything else, because as the Gandharva Angaraparna said, the priest should not be swayed by what the king thinks. He should always tell what is good for the king. Okay. And like that here also, Dhaumya, he had that consciousness and he had that power, knowledge, and he made them the Yajamanas. Yajamanas means they are the spiritual disciples. So that means he is going to conduct all their sacrifices, everything, and then guide them through. And with Dhaumya's blessing, Pandavas then decided to go to Panchala, continue their journey to Panchala, and go and witness the Swayamvara of Draupadi. So they continue their journey, and then so the next we go into Swayamvara. So we will look at that probably next week, what happens in the Swayamvara. Last week, I think, Pranil, you asked about who was Kushika's dad or generation, right? Dynasty.
Who was
right?
Kushika's granddad?
Sorry.
Who was Kushika's granddad?
Yeah, I couldn't find who is Kushika's granddad. I think I found the only name I found in Mahabharata was Balakashva, his father, and I couldn't find uh, other sources. I may have to look in somewhere else.
That's fine.
Okay. I think last week I just started looking at yugas and dharmas and things. So I'll just complete that one today. So last week we were looking at 4 yugas, if you remember. Krita Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. So Krita Yuga is eternal religion. Everybody follows. Treta Yuga, religious virtue decreases by a quarter. So that means it stands on 3 legs. Dwapara Yuga, religion drops by half. That means it's standing on 2 legs. And then in Kali Yuga, it stands on only 1 leg. Okay, only 1/4 of the Yuga virtue is left. Everybody is thinking non-virtuous things. Okay, so Narayana here wears black color. Men do not follow what's said in the Vedas. Brahmanas do not do the sacrifices. They do not do the study the Vedas. They give up their staff. Staff is this stick they hold, and they do not give up their deer skin. That means they don't follow their duties, and they become omnivorous. Okay, they start eating everything. Okay, and Brahmanas also abstain from prayers, meditation, everything, and becomes like Shudras. But Shudras start doing pujas, prayers, and everything else which Brahmanas were used to do. They start chanting mantras and everything. That's what happens in Kali Yuga. And then in this Yuga, Shudras address the Brahmanas as Bho. Bho is like yay, low. Okay, it's like with disrespect. Okay. Okay, they call him like that instead of calling them sir. Okay, but Brahmanas address the Shudras as respected sir, your highness. Okay, so like that, Brahmanas give respect to the Shudras, and Shudras call Brahmanas yay, yay Brahmana. Okay, like that. And so like that, so men will have very little energy, very high temper. Okay, get angry very quickly. They want a lot of greed, unfair, unfaithful, untruthful. Okay, jealousy, pride, anger, deception, malice, covetousness. All these things are the characters of Kali Yuga, of men of Kali Yuga, not just men, women, children, everybody. So that's the Kali Yuga. I mean, Kali Yuga, there are a lot of things that Shastras say. Okay, I just picked few things here, but everything you see is today is what's said in our Shastras. Yes, Pranil, what's your question?
My question is that in Treta Yuga, it says Narayana is red. Dwapara Yuga says Narayana is yellow. And in Kali Yuga, Narayana is black. So in Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga, what color is he?
So his normal color is yellow, Pitam.
Okay. So he's yellow in Satya and Dwapara.
Yeah, normally, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I wanted to cover probably the times and everything, how long the Yuga is and things. Probably we'll look at that next week. Okay, how long each Yuga is and things. Okay.
Okay.
We'll see you next week, Pranal. Thank you. Bye.
We won't be there next week since we're
Okay.
going to be in Scotland.
Okay, I think next week most of the people are not there. Maybe we'll cancel. We'll see. Okay, thank you.